بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم. The ziyarat for the fourth day, as we see on the screen, we have got three places: Hebron, Bethlehem and Lud. And we can see the map in front of us, Al-Aqsa Mosque. From there towards the south, about 10 kilometers, Bethlehem is situated, and about 30 kilometers you will find that Hebron is situated. This is where Hazrat Ibrahim ala nabina wa alayhi salatu wassalam and other prophets are buried. Remember, on this day when you are traveling, because you're going to go through the West Bank, so you got to come out of Jerusalem and you got to pass through a security check. Make sure you have got your passport with you, because generally they would ask you to present your passport. Also, you will see the picture of the apartheid wall in the West Bank. Now this wall runs hundreds of kilometers, and the Jews have put up this wall as though to lock up the Palestinians in this area. And from this we can gauge what level of oppression those people are suffering. A Palestinian who is staying in the West Bank area, for him to travel to Jerusalem, he can only travel if he's got a pass, something like the Dom pass that people needed in the apartheid days. So those who have got the pass, they would have to come every morning and wait in queues by the checkpoints, and they would only be allowed to enter Jerusalem. And someone who does not have the pass, he may be just staying few kilometers away from Jerusalem and have got that desire to come to the Masjidul Aqsa and perform his salah, but he will not be allowed to pass this checkpoint. Only they say sometimes in Ramadan, very old people, they would sometimes give them permission. How much of shukr we should make to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are coming from such a distant place, and Allah has given us that opportunity for us to enter Jerusalem and perform salah in the Masjidul Aqsa. Then we go to Bethlehem. If we recall the incident of Mi'raj, when Hazrat Nabi Akram sallallahu alayhi wasallam was traveling with Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam on the Buraq, and they were traveling from Makkah Mukarramah to Masjidul Aqsa, then we find that the Buraq had stopped at certain places, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was instructed to perform 2 rakats of salah. One particular place, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam inquired from Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam. Jibreel alayhi salam had replied, "This is Baytul Laham, this is the place wherein Hazrat Isa alayhi salam was born." Presently, there is the Church of Nativity, and it is claimed that Hazrat Isa alayhi salam was born there. There are also other places that it is claimed that Isa alayhi salam was born in those places. However, it is definitely not appropriate for us to enter the church, considering the fact that it's under the control of the Christians, and there is kufr and shirk taking place in these places. Sometimes you would be required to even bow your head and enter. So this is something not in keeping with the principles of Islam and the Muslims. Another place of interest is the chapel of Rachel. Rachel was actually Rahil in Arabic, the second wife of Hazrat Yaqub ala nabina wa alayhi salatu wassalam. She is the mother of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam. Initially, for some years of her marriage, she did not conceive, and then she conceived and she gave birth to Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, and then she conceived and she gave birth to Hazrat Binyamin. But it is mentioned that when she gave birth to Hazrat Binyamin, there were some complications which came about, and Hazrat Rahil had passed away. So some mentioned here also, there is no guarantees that she is definitely buried in this place, but this is one of the views that she is buried here and her tomb lies in this chapel. But here again also, it is not appropriate for us to enter these places. We all know the birth of Hazrat Isa alayhi salam. Time does not permit us to go into details, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Hazrat Adam alayhi salam without the medium of a mother or father, without the medium of a male or female. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Hazrat Hawa alayhi salam only with the medium of a male and without the medium of a female. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Hazrat Isa alayhi salam only with the medium of a female, Hazrat Maryam alayhi salam, and without the medium of a male, to show us the qudrat and the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now we come to Hebron al-Khalil, you will find when you come to this place, there will be a lot of children coming and asking for money. We should not give money to the children, firstly because the guides will tell us that these children are not so in need to the money. And secondly, if you give one child money, then you're going to find a whole group of children, sometimes jumping on you, sometimes jumping on your bus. It is definitely not appropriate. You might as well ask your guide if money needs to be given, where the money should be given. We find also there's very tight security here. You got to pass through certain security gates. You got to pass through scanners. Sometimes the guides would tell you that don't carry your bags. Keep your bags in the taxi or in the bus. Don't take your bags into this place, because unnecessarily they will hassle you if they find something from metal or they find a nail clipper or something. So be cognizant of this. This is the staircase that leads up to the masjid. Regarding this masjid, there is also a history of this masjid. It is mentioned that at the bottom of this masjid there is a cave. And Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam is buried in this cave. Similarly Hazrat Ishaq alayhi salam. Similarly Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam. And some say Yusuf alayhi salam is also buried in this cave. Although we cannot say certainly, besides the grave of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, other Ambiyaa alaihumus salam, we cannot say 100% that is the grave. However, regarding this being the grave of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, there is quite strong proofs and evidence that does suggest that it is the grave of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. Before the Sahaabah had conquered this land, then the Christians had built some type of a structure around this place to mark this as the burial place of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. But after the Muslims had conquered this territory, then they had put up a masjid in this facility. When the Crusaders had come, then they had taken this masjid away from the Muslims. But again in the era of Hazrat Salahuddin Ayyubi rahmatullah alayhi, he had reclaimed this masjid. Then we find that this masjid remained entirely in the control of the Muslims. However, in the year 1995, there was a Jewish settler, Israeli settler, by the name of Baruch Goldstein, who came into the compound, who came into this area with a machine gun. There are many people who say that it is very likely that this attack was planned. Because when people came to the masjid, it was the month of Ramadan, and people came to the masjid at the time of Fajr. Then there were some of the authorities that greeted them completely not like normal. They would normally not greet them. And also they had diverted the women and children to another section of the masjid, and said that only the men should be in the main section of this masjid. And this Baruch Goldstein comes in with a machine gun, and when the Imam goes into ruku, he starts shooting. And he had made 29 Palestinian Muslim shaheed. And it's mentioned over 100 people were also wounded. And many people who were present there also mentioned that it was not only this person, there were other people that were shooting. Then there are reports to say that this Baruch Goldstein then killed himself, and some say that the Palestinians got hold of him and they killed him. However, after this year, the Jews then partitioned the masjid. Can we fathom and understand what logic is this? A Jew comes into the confines of the masjid, kills 29 Muslims, and then the masjid is partitioned, and the Muslims are only given about 40% of the masjid. That is why now we do not have access to all the graves. There are 4 graves of 4 Ambiyaa, and also some of their wives that are buried here. But we only have access to the grave of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the grave of Hazrat Ishaq alayhi salam, and their wives, Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam, and Hazrat Rifqa radhiyallahu ta'ala anha. Now we are going to the graves of the Ambiyaa. When we come into the masjid, you will find this place here that is written Al-Gharu Sharif. This is actually an outlet or an exit that would lead to the grave. That is why it is written Al-Gharu Sharif. Your guide would show you this place and show you that this is what would lead to the cave wherein the graves are situated. Coming now to the grave of Hazrat Ibrahim ala nabiyina wa alayhi salatu wassalam. Time does not permit us to go into details, but we all know that Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam was born in Iraq. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam was born in Babylon. This map that we see in front of us is taken from the Kitab Atlas of the Quran. And it shows us how from Iraq and from Babylon, some say Ibrahim alayhi salam was born in Ur, some say he was born in Babylon, and how Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam then made hijrat and he traveled to Haran, and from Haran then he traveled then to Jerusalem, to Hebron, and Ibrahim alayhi salam also went to Al-Ghiza or Al-Jiza, which is situated in Egypt. And from there, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam also traveled to Hijaz, to Makkah Mukarramah. So this is a brief sketch of the journeys of Hazrat Ibrahim ala nabiyina wa alayhi salatu wassalam. Respected friends, there is so much for us to see on the life of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. But just one point that I wish to bring to your attention, where Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radhiyallahu ta'ala says that Nabi Akram sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, Laqitu Ibrahim laylatan usriya bi. On the night when I was taken for Mi'raj, I met Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, and Ibrahim alayhi salam said, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Iqra ummataka minni as-salam. Go and convey my salams to your ummah. Imagine Ibrahim alayhi salam in the heavens, over 1400 years ago, conveyed salams to every one of us sitting here. And then he gave a very special message. And that is why I thought I would share this with you, because it's a special message from a very special person. Ibrahim alayhi salam told, tell your ummah to akhbirhum anna al-jannata azbatul ma, tayyibatul turba. Tell them that Jannat has got very sweet water, and Jannat has got very beautiful soil. Wa annaha qi'an. But a lot of Jannat is barren land, there's no trees. وَأَنَّ غِرَاسَهَا Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. The trees of Jannat are Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. So excessively read the zikr, and you would now be putting up more and more trees in your Jannat. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Qur'an Sharif says, Kana ummatan, an entire nation in one man. Ulama explain the good qualities that you would find in an entire nation all came in one person, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. Then Ibrahim alayhi salam, at a young age, remember he was born and brought up in an environment of idol worship. Ibrahim alayhi salam's father, he was manufacturing the idols. On many occasions, he even tried to advise his father, Ya Abati, oh my beloved father, teaching us this important lesson. Even if your father may be a mushrik or a kafir, treat him with respect. Speak to him with respect, my dear father. And he advised his father, he advised his people, but no one was prepared to accept. So Ibrahim alayhi salam decided that one day when all of them are gone for a fair, he goes and breaks the whole lot of idols, and then he takes the axe and he puts it on the neck or on the shoulder of the biggest idol. And when the people come back, he tells them maybe this big one, maybe he broke the other idols, to teach them a very important lesson. These idols you are worshipping cannot even defend themselves. You also accept that the big one could not break the other small ones. So why do you worship these things? But people were enraged and they threw him in the fire. Time does not permit us to go into details. But Abdullah ibn Abbas, the narration of Bukhari Sharif mentions that Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was being thrown into the fire, آخر قول على لسان إبراهيم حين ألقي في النار أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل. The last statement on the tongue of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam when he was being flung into the fire was حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل. Allah is sufficient for me, and Allah is an excellent manager of all my affairs. If you can take this one lesson, that in any part of our life, through whatever difficulty we are experiencing, always say, Hasbi Allahu wa ni'mal wakil, not only with our tongues, but from the recesses of our hearts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then made this fire cool and peaceful for Ibrahim alayhi salam, to such an extent that Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam says, the best time in my entire life was the time that I spent in the fire. Ibrahim alayhi salam was known for his hospitality. The Qur'an Sharif speaks of the incident when the angels came to Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam and he had treated them as guests. Immediately he prepares a roasted calf. This is just one incident, many incidents that demonstrate the hospitality of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. Then Ibrahim alayhi salam, at a very old age, Allah blesses him with a son Ismail alayhi salam from Hazrat Hajar alayhi salam. And Ibrahim alayhi salam is commanded now to take that son and the mother and leave them in the barren lands of Makkah Mukarramah. We all know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never abandoned them. Hajar alayhi salam, when she was informed, this is the command of Allah, she said, إِذَنْ لَا يُضَيِّئُنَا. Allah will never destroy us. Allah will never allow us to perish. And history bears testimony. Allah never allowed them to perish. And from there, we find that the Zamzam well had emerged. Until this day and time, we enjoy the Zamzam water. And then we know the sacrifice that we all hear about of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was commanded to now put the knife on the one and only son's neck. A person can perhaps put a knife on his neck. Unimaginable sacrifice. Today, respected friends, even if we try to imagine this, put ourselves in the place of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, we cannot even imagine it. We cannot even imagine taking a knife and putting it on the neck of our children. But Ibrahim alayhi salam's entire life, his entire life was the life of submission and sacrifice. Fasara Khalil ar-Rahman, that is how he earned the title of being Khalil ar-Rahman, the friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We would make dua by the grave of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, make Isal Sawab for him, Surah Fatiha, Qul Wallahu Ahad 11 times, and make dua through the wasila of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, that Allah also blesses us with that spirit, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also blesses us and our progenies with that iman. Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam, the beloved wife of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, the second most beautiful woman. After Hawa alayhi salam was the most beautiful woman on the surface of this earth. After that was Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam. She was the mother of prophets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed her with being the mother, and how many prophets came from her progeny. We find when Sarah alayhi salam, here again time does not permit us, but when they were traveling by Egypt, we showed you on the map that they also traveled to Egypt. And when the king of Egypt, he realized that a very beautiful woman was passing by his territory, he summoned her. The hadith says at that time, Ibrahim alayhi salam engaged himself in salah. He started performing salah. Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam, when she comes before the king, he sees her beauty and cannot contain himself, and he makes advances towards her. Immediately she makes dua, Allahumma in kunta ta'alamu anni amantu bika wa bi rasulik wa ahsantu farji illa ala zawji fala tusallit aliya al-kafir. Oh Allah, if you know that I brought iman in you and on your Rasul, and I have always kept myself chaste only for my husband, don't allow this kafir to have the upper hand over me. Never underestimate the power of dua. Allah accepted her dua, and that king was seized. He became like paralyzed. He asked her to make dua for his release. She made dua. The second time again he made advances. Again she made dua. Now he was seized again, even more severe than the first time. And eventually the third time, he promised her that make dua, that I am released from this condition. And I promise you, I will not harm you. And then she made dua, and then he told the people around him, you have not brought an insan. This is perhaps some shaitan or jinnat. And in those days and times, they would revere and respect the jinnat. So that is why he decided to give her a gift. Hazrat Hajar alayhi salam was given to her as a gift, and Hajar alayhi salam became the mother of Ismail alayhi salam, and from her progeny Hazrat Nabi Akram sallallahu alayhi wasallam came. When Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam was 90 years of age, she could not conceive, and she made a lot of dua to Allah. Again the same incident, when the angels came as guests to Ibrahim alayhi salam, they gave them the glad tidings that Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam will conceive. So she smiled and she said, A'alidu wa ana ajuz wa hadha bali shaykha. Can I ever conceive? Can I ever give birth to a child? I am an old barren woman, and this is my husband. I am 90 years and my husband is 100 years of age. Inna hadha la shay'un ajib. This is something amazing. The Farishta said, Ata'jabina min amrillah. Are you amazed at the power of Allah? Allah's rahmat and Allah's blessings are always over you, O family of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So this was Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam in a nutshell. And the child that was born to her at the age of 90 was Hazrat Ishaq alayhi salam. Ulama explain, Ishaq originally comes from the word Yashaq, which is a Hebrew word, which is equivalent to the Arabic of Yadhaq, for someone to smile or someone to be happy. And why he was given this name? Because one was when Sarah alayhi salam was given the glad tidings of him, she smiled and she laughed. That's why they kept his name Ishaq. And some say he was a source of happiness to his parents. Ishaq alayhi salam was married at the age of 40. Ibrahim alayhi salam got him married in his own family. He requested his nephew to give his daughter in marriage to Hazrat Ishaq alayhi salam, and his wife's name was Hazrat Rifqa radhiyallahu ta'ala anha. For 20 years of his marriage, he did not have any children. But at the age of 60, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with 2 bundles of joy. Allah blessed him with a set of twin boys. The first child's name was Hazrat Is, and the second son's name was Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam. And Yaqub comes from the word Akhib. And it is mentioned that first Is was born, and when Yaqub alayhi salam was coming out, because he was holding onto the heel of Is, immediately after he came out, Yaqub alayhi salam also came out together with him. That is why he was given the name of Yaqub. And Yaqub alayhi salam is also buried here, but generally we would not be able to get to the grave of Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam. However, we could make dua for him. We all know Yaqub alayhi salam, his name was Israel. And the Bani Israel, the Jews, they originated from him. The 12 tribes of the Jews come from the 12 sons of Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam. We all know Bani Israel had 12 tribes, and that all came from the 12 sons of Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam. Hazrat Ishaq alayhi salam passed away at the age of 180. Sayyidah Rifqa, we will also see her grave radhiyallahu ta'ala anha. Some guides also would take you to the qabr of Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam. Although most people won't go to the qabr of Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, we know Yusuf alayhi salam was blessed with half the beauty of the entire mankind. Yusuf alayhi salam resembled his great-grandmother, Hazrat Sarah alayhi salam. Yusuf alayhi salam was the first son born from Hazrat Rahil. We all know the amazing story of Yusuf alayhi salam, where from the prison, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had elevated him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made him the king and made him the ruler. The 2 secret ingredients for the success of Yusuf alayhi salam, which comes in the surah to Yusuf, where he says, may yattaqi wa yasbir, that person who has got taqwa and that person who has got sabr. These 2 qualities throughout his life he had. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never destroy the rewards of those who do good. Also a beautiful dua that he made towards the last part of his life. فَاطِرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ أَنْتَ وَلِيِّي فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Creator of the heavens and the earth, you are my guardian in this world and the year after. تَوَفَّنِي مُسْلِمًا وَأَلْحِقْنِي بِالصَّالِحِينَ. Take me away with Islam and join me to the pious people. This dua also appears in the Surah Yusuf, a very beneficial dua for all of us to make. Yusuf alayhi salam was the leader of Egypt. How did he land up in Hebron? And how did his grave come here? Although some say that he is not buried in Hebron, he is buried in Nablus, but that is also in Palestine. So there is a narration of Hazrat Abu Musa Ash'ari radhiyallahu ta'ala, and Imam Hakim and some other muhaddiseen had brought this narration very quickly. It is mentioned that Musa alayhi salam, when he was leaving with the Bani Israel, and they were running away from Fir'aun, but they lost their way, they could not find their way. Musa alayhi salam asked the scholars of the Bani Israel, what is the matter? They had replied that Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam had requested, before the Bani Israel leave Egypt, we must take his body and go with us. So he asked, who knows where his body is, because hundreds of years had passed from the demise of Yusuf alayhi salam. There was an old lady of the Bani Israel who knew. Musa alayhi salam summoned her. She said, I'm not going to show you all until you do not give me my request. Musa alayhi salam was first reluctant, but Allah sent wahi, giving to her request. This old woman was a very intelligent old woman. She said, my request is, I want to be your companion in Jannah. So he gave in to her request. She showed him where the body was, and as soon as the body was taken out from the ground, it is mentioned, فَإِذَا الطَّرِيقِ مِثْلُ ضُوءِ النَّهَارِ, that the road then became bright like the broad daylight. They just found their way and they managed to escape in this manner. The last ziyarat for today is a place that is known as Lud or Baab Lud. And as we will see the map, this is about 49 kilometers away from Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now it is mentioned, there is a lengthy narration, but the narration shows that when Dajjal will see Isa alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam will come to destroy Dajjal. Then Dajjal will start melting and dissolving like how salt dissolves in water. And he would start running away and fleeing away. And Isa alayhi salam will eventually catch Dajjal. And it is mentioned that Isa alayhi salam will kill Dajjal by the eastern entrance of this place that is called Lud. And this particular place that we see, this picture that we see now in front of us, the people of that place, they would claim, and perhaps there are some clues why they make this claim, that this is the exact location where Dajjal will be killed. Dajjal is not a jinnat and is not a system, rather Dajjal is a human and he will be killed. And then the hadith says, after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will destroy the Jews. The Jews now will start running in every direction and trying to save themselves, trying to hide. But every stone, every tree and every wall, if a Jew, even every animal, if a Jew hides behind it, immediately it will say, "Oh Muslim, there is a Jew that is hiding behind me. Ta'ala uqtulhu, come and kill him." Only Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says there is one tree, and that is the gharqad tree. We see the picture of the gharqad tree before us. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, this is the tree of the Jews. This tree will not speak. This is the only tree. That is why the Jews are growing this tree in abundance. In fact, you'll find also some Palestinian Muslims don't know about this. They are also growing this tree in abundance. Lud is the place, and according to the guides, they say this is the exact location wherein Hazrat Isa alayhi salam will destroy Dajjal. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of us the true understanding, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it a source of inspiration and hidayat and acceptance for one and all. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.